Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had,
Yeah.
We've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it The Why and the Buy. How's
All
that?
right. Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of The Why and the Buy. We're getting really close to the end of the year here, Christie. Are we going to be able to make it?
I just put up my Christmas tree. I think I might make it till January 1. I'm excited. So a lot of good stuff coming in 2018.
Awesome. We've got a lot of good stuff coming in 2018. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in an episode upcoming here. But right now, there's still a lot to be excited about in 2017. We've got a special guest today. Carl Gould is with us. He's been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. He's written or co-written 7 books, one of them with Ken Blanchard and Stephen Covey, names you and I have heard once or twice before, Christie.
Just a couple of times.
The most recent one is called Fix It in 5. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as some of the other ones. Carl is a speaker, an author, a trainer, a consultant, a checker of boxes, as I'm told, because all of them seem to be checked right there. Carl, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys. It's the end of the year, and a lot of people are contemplating how their year was and what their next year is going to be like. So it is definitely a time for people where, this season could be a lot of good news and it could be a lot of not so good news. So,
right. Absolutely. How was your year?
My year was awesome. It was really good. I probably did more just pure family and personal travel than ever before, which is great. I do a lot of business travel, and as a speaker, you speak at all the best resorts in the world, so it's hard to call it work, but this time I was able to not work, get off the grid, literally did a safari this year with the family in Africa. So yeah, it was great. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. That is on my bucket list.
Yeah, I definitely took that one off the list this year. That was super.
I don't know. Don't you have to get shots to go over there?
These are minor things.
I'm not afraid of needles. That's not the issue. It's just, when you got to get shots to go somewhere, I think twice about going. That's, it's like there's bad stuff there. I don't know.
In Africa, I think the further north you go, the more shots you need. The further south you go.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well. Okay. That's a good way to put it in perspective. So awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Carl, Fix It in 5.
Yeah, so there I am. In my past career, I had a construction company, and I used to build log cabins, one of the things I used to do. And so I used to have an exhibition booth, and I start my consulting career, and I said, you know what? I'm going to use the trade show method. And so in order to attract people to my booth, I had a little sign that said, I'll fix any problem in your business in 10 minutes or less. And so people would come to the booth and be like, all right, I'll bite, here's my problem. And within 10 minutes, we would do a coaching session, little strategy session, come up with some ideas, and they'd be like, oh, not so bad. And so 4 years ago, Carl Gibbons and I started a radio show called Quit and Get Rich. And we were putting together a segment. People were writing in and asking us problems and, asking us questions and about turning their business around and all that. And so we had 5 minutes to do a segment. So we said, you know what, let's shorten it, call it Fix It in 5, and see what we can do to point them in the right direction of some ways they can improve their business. It's totally taken off. It's now its own segment on iHeartRadio, its own show on iHeartRadio. And it's been a lot of fun. And now, oh God, almost 300 episodes. We do 3 every week. So we're darn near 1,000 of these. So we decided to write a book about it. And it was an interview version. Since we're radio hosts, we thought, okay, turn the tables. And we had 3 celebrity interviewers, if you will. Victor Antonio, Erica Nicole, and Stephanie Vaughn Miller, a branding, coaching, and sales expert. And they interviewed us and held our feet to the fire, and we talked about all of the questions we get in all the major categories of business. So it was a blast. We had good fun. We had good fun doing it.
Give me an example. What's one of the Fix It in 5 sessions that stick out to you?
So great question. The one of the big ones is partner issues. So think about it. You're with a partner, and the two of you in the very beginning of the business say, "Oh, let's grow the business. This will be great." And so you start out like a house on fire. Both of you just go, 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 and then you hit the initial goals that were set out. And then one of the partners gets very comfortable, almost complacent, and you say to them, "Hey, I thought we were gonna grow this thing." And they say, "Well, yeah, we did, didn't we?" And they said, "Well, I thought we were just getting started." The other one's like, "Nah, I'm done, dude. This was awesome. But if you want to keep, driving forward, you go ahead. You're so inspiring. Love you, man." And you realize at that moment, you have a partner, you have the wrong partner. And your choice is, do I do 100% of the work, drag them across the finish line, and give up 50% of the reward? Or do you deal with this disparity in visions? And we get that one a lot. That's a big one we'll get. And then most of them are either they want to expand way too early, like, "Hey, I was thinking of expanding my business because there was an opening in the mall where I wanted to be." I'm like, "That's not the reason to expand your business."
Right.
Build it and they will come doesn't work.
Exactly. Well, yeah, in the movies and baseball maybe, but not, most everywhere else. And so we get a lot of people who are just trying to do it a little bit too early, or they've actually, here's why work-life balance will never work within the entrepreneurial world or the high-performance world, because people they find that balance, and then they're almost immediately bored, and they're writing in saying, "Hey, what do I do with myself now? I've worked my butt off for this thing called balance. I have it now. I'm bored stiff." And we try to get to them quickly before they start to sabotage their own results, for the sake of having a little bit of an adrenaline rush now and again, So those are some of the ones that we deal with on a pretty regular basis.
So, it's interesting. Not everybody is going to be a good partner. And I'm curious as to how you address that. Do you just, encourage a leverage buyout? Do you find another partner for them? The other thing that you mentioned there is, hey, this seems like a really good opportunity. Here's someone who wants us, right? Not every customer is a good customer either. And
Right.
How do you help people through that? One, we've got a lot of people that listen to this show. We really kind of speak to small business owners and entrepreneurs. We also speak to sales professionals and sales leaders. We find these people kind of gravitating toward us, and so I think there's different aspects of those situations that can be applicable to either of those audiences. But where do you go in those situations?
Well, a couple things in there. So, how do you identify the right partner? First off, there needs to be an alignment of values. You have to believe the same things, not just have the same goals, because goals, to say I want to be rich or I want to have $1 million, there's a lot of ways to get there. And so there needs to be an alignment of, do we agree on the how and the why, right? So the what, everybody agrees on. I want to have a business. That's the what. I want to sell my widget. Everyone agrees on that. That's easy. But the how and the why is what you have to agree on, because that's where you're going to spend most of your day. And that's the differentiator in the business, But the main mistake most people make when choosing a partner is they confuse somebody's enjoyment for a task with their competency in a task. And so we have this little formula that we use to show our clients how much money we can steal from them, and they would never know it. And the basic premise,
not much from me, I have to say.
It would be relatively a lot, but relatively a little, if you know.
Right, yeah.
And so, because everybody has a thermostat, where they have a comfort level with a certain amount of underperformance in their business before they would ever take notice and institute change. And it's just like a thermostat. Too hot and the air conditioning takes us lower. Too low and the heat takes us higher, keeps us in that comfort zone. When we're in a comfort zone, we relax. We don't ask a lot of questions. We don't challenge things. And so, we try to show them where their blind spot is. And we say that we do believe in leveraging your strengths, no doubt about it. However, you must become functional in your blind spot areas. You can't get complacent in those areas. And functional just means, do you know what good looks like? And do you know what bad looks like? You can't just say, oh, I hate that side of the business. You seem to like it. You take it.
Right.
You can't do that. And, think of every horror story of an athlete or a musician where they were once rich, taken advantage of, and no longer rich, because they had a blind spot and somebody took advantage of them and they didn't even know the difference, And so we try to educate them on being functional enough just to know what good looks like, competent, and what incompetent looks like, so they can make the right decisions for themselves.
What are most people and most business owners incompetent at that they think they're quite competent at?
Managing growth, for a start. They think that as long as I've got cash and sales, I'm under control. We say that there, in every business at any given time, there are two people that are the most unqualified in any business. And the first one is a person who just got a promotion, right? Because what got them there is not, what got them there is not the skill set that's going to keep them there or make them competent in that particular area of the business, right? And so that's one. And then the other one is the CEO of a growth company. Because if you're a $5 million CEO and you're good at that, and you've never been $6 million, and then you grow to $6 million, well, what qualifies you to be a $6 million, a CEO of a $6 million company? You've never done it. Well, right now, nothing qualifies you for that. It's uncharted territory until you master it. And so you need to continue to master it. I make the joke, I played basketball, all the way through high school, and then, in all the adult leagues and all that sort of thing. And I say that I'm a great 5'10" basketball player, but I'm terrible at being 6'4". I'm just not there. And I've no qualifications to be a 6'4" basketball player. I've never been over 5'10". So you take an owner of a fast growing business, and every time they reach the next milestone, they are among the least qualified in that company because they just simply have never been there.
Yeah. We've seen it before where with salespeople, even that ego becomes the enemy. I love there's a Ryan Holiday book that's called Ego is the Enemy. And it's all about this level of complacency that people can get into because, hey, you were successful for a number of years, but the industry changed, the market changed underneath you, and you didn't stay current with that. So now all of a sudden you're in this complacency spot and you don't see it at all.
Yeah, it's true. And it becomes their blind spot. And, and they go back to what they've always done, or even worse, they get resistant to new ideas because they think they've learned it all, because they've achieved some level of success. What they've learned is an area of comfort, which has served them well, but now they probably need to break through to that next level. And that was scary enough when I did it eons ago. You want me to do it again?
Yeah.
This age? No way, Yeah.
So
they kind of protect that role.
So I'm curious, Carl, the radio show is called Quit and Get Rich.
Correct.
What are you quitting?
So we say that we need you to get your head out of your assets. Quit doing the things you're not supposed to be doing, right? In other words, don't try to hold on to every task, and delegate and leverage out to those that do it well. And then get rich is achieve whatever goals you have, whatever rich is for you. But essentially, you can then scale your business, whatever that is. You have your best ability to scale.
Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to wrap my head around all this. I'm trying to wrap my head around what I'm supposed to be getting rid of here. I mean, so what do you find? We just talked a little bit about what a lot of business owners or salespeople think that they are most competent at, when it turns out that they may actually be least competent at. What are some things that people hold on to too long? What are the first assets that you encourage your clients to get their heads out of?
Their finances. Like, they need to understand it, but we suggest the first hire you make, I don't care who you are, Okay, what size business you have, whether you in-house it or outsource it, is hire somebody who's going to manage your money. Hire somebody who's going to handle the accounting and the bookkeeping, and get that off your plate right away. Get educated in it, understand what it means, know how to read a P&L, know how to read a balance sheet, statement of cash flow, that sort of thing. But get that off your plate immediately and get it in the hands of somebody else.
Because that's a result, right? I mean, this is what I tell people all the time is, your sales, your revenues that you drive, that's all really important, but that's a result of your process. And your process is the only thing that you can control. That's those KPIs and those, those activities that are going to drive that revenue are what you need to focus on. Sometimes you're going to do everything right and the sale's not going to be made. Sometimes you're going to do everything right and the sale is going to be made. But the only thing you can really get a grasp of is doing everything right in that process. And so, that was one of the first things that I did was I did exactly what you mentioned. Someone else handles my books. And I mean, it happens to be my wife. So someone who's very, very trusted, right? But that becomes her responsibility. I don't have to think about it. I can focus on those activities that are going to drive client growth, that are going to drive my growth. And, the key there is having someone, obviously like my wife, who does that stuff for me. We're a small business, but, that kind of thing gets your head focused on the stuff that really matters. Your extra mental time and emotional time and effort and energy can be spent in those places that are actually going to drive the growth rather than trying to manage everything. I think I just feel good because you validated one of my big first decisions. But no, there's so much truth to that. I mean, because you can't have it all. You can't hold on to it all. There are only 24 hours in a day, and I don't care if you're proud of how little sleep you get. How do you have the mental capacity to measure it all or to control it all? And I don't think anybody does.
No, you don't. As a matter of fact, we say that one of the top skills of a CEO is how quickly can they get a task off their plate. The analogy we use is the quarterback in football. On any given play, of the people who will touch that ball, the quarterback holds on to it the least, and they are the highest paid, by the way. And in football, if a quarterback gets the ball and they hold on to it too long, bad things happen. Interceptions, fumble, tackle, lose the ball, lose ground. Very rarely does anything good happen when the quarterback holds on to the ball too long. However, their ability to distribute the ball to the person who's supposed to run with it is their strength. And, it's like a CEO, something elevates to your desk, you get it off and in the hands of the person who can run with it as quickly as possible. So, because they're the ones that are the specialist in that area. So we don't like to see a CEO hang on to anything too long at all.
And when the quarterback holds on to the ball too long, they try to force things and you make bad decisions that way. Sometimes it works out just fine and other times it's a disaster. But the other key thing there too is that the quarterback has the ball on every play. So there is involvement every single time. Yep. And all the other players in the field get substituted pretty freely, but the quarterback is there for at least every offensive play. That's a really good analogy, Carl. You may want to consider a business helping people in these situations, maybe speaking about it, write a couple books.
Yeah, you're making a note now. Yes, excellent. Post it. That's awesome.
On it. Thank you.
I love it. There may be a book in there too. You never know. So I know, Carl, you have a lot of experience in working with salespeople too. And just like our small business CEOs, salespeople find their blind spots as well. So where do you see the biggest room for improvement when you work with a sales team?
Well, so first thing we like to do is we like to, what I call micro segment the process. And so, but for our purposes today, just think of any sales transaction having two parts. The front part of the activities we call selling, and the back end is called closing. And so selling, and in our book, we have a 9-step sales funnel that breaks down the dynamics of any transaction, no matter how you sell, where you sell, online, offline, short, out of cash, retail, services, you name it. And so the first few activities are all selling, meaning they're building rapport and gaining agreement and building the relationship, all of the people-oriented, feel-good, client qualification type activities. Then there's the closing. The closing is breaking rapport, taking a risk, reciting the terms and conditions, and then getting a commitment out of the prospect. And we are wired one way or the other. You're either born a seller or you are born a closer. You are not born both. Now, luckily, you can learn the other skill, but you do have to learn it. And you have to, I was born more of a seller. I had to learn how to close. Some people are born a closer. They have to learn how to sell. And so with the sales team, you map out the sales process. What's all the things that happens from a lead to a contract, right? And then you say, what are the selling activities? What are the closing activities? So if you think about it, you walk in to buy a car. Can the salesperson sell you a car?
If you walk in to buy one, I would hope so.
Well, think about it for a second. If you walked into an auto showroom and said to the salesperson, I want to buy that car, do they have the authority to sell you the car?
Most
not
times,
without
no.
pulling the GM in.
Bingo.
Right.
Yeah.
Not without bringing in the closer. They have no authority whatsoever to sell you a car. What are they allowed to do? They're allowed to qualify you, help you fill out the paperwork, take it for a test drive, sit in it, work all the knobs and all the features. But as soon as you're ready for the transaction, they bring in the closer, the finance manager, GM, you name it, right? And so they have almost no authority, but they understand that the salesman's good at one thing, the finance manager or the GM is good at another thing. They have segmented the sales process. By the way, you only need one or two closers and you can have a whole beehive of activity of sellers. So what we do is and by the way, sellers, because they don't have to know all the technical aspects and they don't have to know all about the financial ramifications, they're easier to train, easier to find, cheaper, less risk. So when you have a trade show, you send the sellers to the trade show. You do not send the closers to a trade show. Closers don't like people. They don't want to be bothered with people. People are a pain in the butt. And so they're in their way constantly, right? Closers scorch a lot of earth. You know, they want instant gratification. They want to make it happen. And that's totally cool. There's a place for both. And so find out who your sellers are and send them to the front end of the funnel activities, and find out who your closers are, send them to the back end of the funnel activities. That's one of the quickest ways to reduce the friction in your sales funnel and get immediate results.
That's really interesting. There are a lot of elements there that sound familiar. I mean, anybody selling software now has an SDR team, right? You've got a bullpen full of people who are making calls and outreach with email and social media and everything else. And then you turn that over to an account executive or someone who can actually do the demo and then close the deal. Often it's a little more segmented than that. I come from a place where, when in medical devices, particularly with orthopedics, you had to do all your prospecting, you had to close, and then do the relationship management all in one. So I tend to have a little bit of favoritism toward that model because I saw it firsthand how it drove new leads and drove new prospecting activities. And maybe it takes a certain species of beast like myself to be able to handle all that stuff, whereas segmenting it the way that you're saying, it certainly makes a lot of sense. What's interesting to me is, while it makes a lot of sense in software sales as well, it is not a one-size-fits-all kind of platform. There's certainly nuance to every industry, every sale that needs to be acknowledged there. But I've never heard it put as simply as you just did there. Like, look, you got people who can close, you got people who can sell, and stop trying to make everybody everything. Utilize your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and if you are in a position where the process can be segmented, then do that, because it actually it helps the buyer. That's the interesting thing, is it doesn't help the company so much. I mean, it does, but we can let that be secondary. It helps the buyer in that regard. And that's a really interesting way to put that.
Yeah. You can even team up a seller and a closer together as long as the roles are clearly defined. I mean, you're right. There's all these hybrid models out there that you can do. But when you have, especially in the sales situation, when you have people doing the work that they do best, they stay fresh, they stay energized. And you're right. it takes a special breed to do both for any long period of time. You take a closer and make them sit in a booth and have them and prospect and not allow them to hunt, right? All this that wears them down. And you take a seller who's not great at confrontation and not great at cutting the cord, and you put them in a closing situation that wears them down. So as long as at the end of the day, the salespeople are energized by the part of the process that they're doing, then you probably have a good mix.
Very interesting.
Yep, I like that.
So Carl, you've had a lot of interaction with some pretty powerful people. You mentioned Tony Robbins in our prep discussion. Obviously, you've written a book with Ken Blanchard, Stephen Covey. Is there a book or a thought leader that really just kind of started it all for you?
Well, there was a few. When I first started down the path of personal development, the book that really influenced me a lot was a book called The Celestine Prophecy. And it was a book about essentially, as long as you're in pursuit of what you want, the things you need will show up as you need. And essentially, it's the book that shows you that there are no coincidences in life. Things are, when you're ready for them, they appear, sort of thing. That was very, very influential. I love the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was very influential in my life. Another book I've kind of gleaned onto recently is a book called The Family Board Meeting by Jim Shields, and it's about entrepreneurs and how to raise an entrepreneurial family. That one was really intriguing. I like Keith Cunningham's book, The Blueprint for an Insanely Successful Business. It's accounting, a business accounting made simple. So I've enjoyed that one. I'm a voracious reader. I'm always reading a lot of things.
We'll have links to those books in the show notes for anybody listening that wants to follow those. I've been writing those down. It's funny. I'm writing these down, Carl, and I'm like, wow. Oh yeah, I'm recording this. I really don't need to write this down. I can just, re-listen to this later. It's going to be on my computer, for crying out loud. But
who says he's slow, Christie? Huh?
Never me. Trust me. Never me. I promise.
So, Carl, we asked this of all of our guests. You've been doing a lot for a long time. Producing a lot of content, writing all these books, doing all these talks, going all over the world, safaris, for crying out loud. What is your why? Why do you do this? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, it's a great question because it's probably the same theme. When I remember 20 years ago as a guy in construction, I was in the mid 90s, and I'd never really traveled anywhere. I'd never really been much of anywhere. And I remember writing down in my life plan, the theme of my life plan was going to be paid to play all around the world. That was the mantra. And I had no idea how I was going to do it.
Right.
I was just turned 30 years old. I had no clue. I'm like, I never left New Jersey. Where did that come from? Part of my pen did that come out of, And so back then it was more about finding what I was passionate about, because I wasn't passionate about the business I was in. It was very good to me. It was a successful business, but it really wasn't where my passion lay. And so when I wanted to become a coach, when I decided I want to become a coach in the 90s, it didn't exist the way it exists today.
Yeah.
And I was contemplating getting out of a very successful business in a thriving industry for the privilege of doing a job that nobody heard about. And the average coach in the 1990s made $23,000 a year. So this was not, in most people's eyes, a good career. And so, but I wanted to do it, and I was committed to making it a six-figure business. So it was like being an accountant, being an attorney. Like, that was my why back then. But since then, I figured out how to make a living doing this work. And so now my why is teaching those that want to pursue their passion, and teaching those who want to be an expert or a guru or, a trainer or a consultant or a coach, and helping them find their passion and their dream. So that's what drives me today. And whether I'm training a group of brand new coaches out of the box, or we're advising one of our clients, that's really what drives me today.
Awesome. Awesome. And clearly the results speak for themselves. You're helping a lot of people to do what they want to do. And ultimately, your why is helping people like them help people like everybody listening right now. That's pretty impressive. We need more people like that, Carl.
Yeah, no kidding.
We need more people like you.
Well, thank you.
Speaking of which, so Carl, how do people find you?
So the gateway to all the things that I do is through my website, carlgould.com. And you could email me at carl@carlgould.com. But pretty much I'm pretty easy to find. And what we do is for any of your listeners, we have a gift for them. If they want a free coaching session, all they have to do is go to my website and type in the word coaching in the contact, and we'll get them all a free coaching session if they'd like to take us up on it.
Okay, excellent. So that's Carl Gould, GOULD.com. And a free coaching session for someone who has had this level of experience is invaluable. So the name of the book is Quit and Get Rich, Fix It in 5. It's for entrepreneurs, experts, executives, business owners, and inventors. The secrets to quitting what you shouldn't be doing, getting your head out of your assets, and focusing on the key activities that will make you more successful. I like that.
Go buy it. Carl, thanks for being here with us. Anybody listening, go out right now, check out Carl, check out the website, and check out the books. He's got several on the website that you can buy right through the website there. It's really, really easy for you as the customer. Your customer experience will be great. Carl knows his stuff. He's helped a lot of people, and we really appreciate you coming by today, Carl. Christie, I think it sounds very, very clearly like Carl understands his why.
That's right, because when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better.
All the time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
I told you once, I've told you twice. I told myself it doesn't matter.
How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out. Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at the Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.